All right. Let's start off by saying Barakatay Hawa, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Rachah Kodash. Welcome
All
to
right.
another live lesson. The name of this one is All Out Assault on the Hebrew Israelites. All Out Assault on the Hebrew Israelites. And pretty much, as you can see, these wacky tacky Christians, attempting to dismantle or even just cast doubt or try to cast doubt on the Hebrew Israelite thing, because they feel threatened and there's nothing else they could do. And the greatest weapon of the devil besides the sword, which was his blessing, was what? Deception. But what they don't understand is that the Most High, has them in a trick bag, and they're thinking that they're making strides, because they have clowns out there like Dr. Edom, Vocab Malone, Dr. Eric Mason, or Freemason, and some of these other newer faces that you see coming against, the Hebrew Israelites, because they're trying to stop this work because it's really hurting them, and it's causing them to be uncomfortable. It's causing them to get into their studies. It's causing them to read the Bible. It's causing them to do things that they haven't done in a long time, and it's just put them in a bad situation. But pretty much this lesson is going to be based on color and whatever else the Spirit gives me. I really don't have anything planned, just a few scriptures that came to mind. I was watching this video Elder Pastor Tara did. The Israelites are dark skin, only Esau turns red when the sun hits him. And this is all based off of what these clowns out there are trying to say, that they're trying to do away with color scriptures. And there's color scriptures all throughout the Bible. It's just a matter of going in there and pulling out, pretty much what you need. Now, I guess we could start off in the New Testament, and we can go to the book of Acts 13:1, start off there. And what's funny is when you go to Russian icons and certain other icons, you look at frescoes and paintings of the Israelites in Egypt, and you can see they went from a dark brown to what they will call ruddy, which is a lighter brown with red overtones in it. But this is Acts 13:1. It says, "Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul." Right? So now we have a couple of points to make here. You have a man called here, Simeon was called Niger, right? And then you had Lucius of Cyrene. Now, when you know anything about Cyrene, Cyrene is in the northern parts of so-called Africa. This is also the place where Simon, I believe his name was Simon the Cyrenian, who helped Yahushua carry the cross. And he was also an Israelite, a so-called black man, so you could understand. So, and then you had a big community of Israelites down in the interiors of Africa, and this is why we always fled down in there. A matter of fact, let me get this scripture real quick before I forget. I'll just leave that there, and then we'll come back to it. Matter of fact, as I mentioned it, let's see, Matthew 2:13. "And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into what? Into Egypt." Now, contrary to popular belief, the original Egyptians were so-called black, dark-skinned people, Hamites, so you can understand. And the Hamites are dark-skinned people. You had four. They were broken up into four groups. You had Ham, right, which is a father. Then you had Mizraim or Mitzrayim. You had Cush. You had Put, and you had let's see, Mizraim, Cush, Put, and Canaan. All right, and they were all dark-skinned men. And pretty much when you go back to the beginning, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth were all dark-skinned men, brown-skinned men, and their children that came out of them came out brown-skinned. It wasn't until and after the flood, it wasn't until Esau crept up on the scene that you started having people of different color, which was the Edomites, so-called white. Okay, it says, check that out. The brother Mathathia put up Second Maccabees 1:1. The brethren, the Jews that be at Jerusalem and in the land of Judea, wish unto the brethren, the Jews that are throughout Egypt, health and peace, because you had a big, large community of Israelites down there. But guess what? You had a big, large community of Israelites all over the place because they were scattered, during the Assyrian and Babylonian empires. And this is why you had Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven coming to Jerusalem. But now Yahushai, Joseph, Mary, and Yahushai went down into what? Into Egypt to flee from the face of Herod, because Herod found out that the king of the Jews was being born, and him, along with the rest of those clowns that you see today, such as Nazariah, Egghead, and all of them clowns that deny the faith, they were all nervous. They were all nervous because that it was said that the king of the Jews is born. So Herod got nervous, and those Uncle Tom Israelites, for lack of better words, they got nervous also. So they fled into Egypt. And Egypt, the ancient Egyptians were dark-skinned people. It wasn't until the Greeks got up in there that you started to have so-called white-looking pharaohs. Okay, like Cleopatra, she was a so-called white woman, an Edomite. And you have some Kemet people that get mad. Well, she was not a black woman. Okay, she was a so-called white woman because her lineage went back to the so-called white pharaohs of Egypt during the time of the Hellenistic period. All right, during the time when Ptolemy, because first this devil, Alexander the Creep, conquered Egypt, and then the pharaoh or the line of the Ptolemies got up into Egypt, and that's where you have those so-called white-looking pharaohs came from. But prior to that, they were all so-called black, and the Lord told Joseph to take his wife and his son and to go down and to flee into Egypt. All right, to mix among the rest of the Jews that were down there. Now, when you go back here, like I said, Lucius of Cyrene, Simon of the Cyrenian, they were all of the northern parts of Africa, all right, which is north of Egypt. And you had a large community all in those areas, all right? So then his city was called Niger. So when you look up the word Niger, right, the word Niger of Latin origin, let's see what the devil says.
Strong's G 3526, Niger.
He said that like them Edomites down south when they were getting at Jake. But why did they call Jake that? Because Jake was brown-skinned people. They call him shines. They call him niggas. It says nigger equals black. Surname of the prophet Simeon. I'm trying to see if they go into anything else. Black, Niger, a Christian Niger. And when you look up the word Niger in the common dictionary, let's see what it says. I mean, of course, they're going to have land masses. Let's go to definition. Definition. right here. In the English language, the word nigger is an ethnic slur typically directed at black people. Why? Because the word nigger or niger denotes someone that has dark skin. The word originated in the 18th century, was an adaptation of the Spanish negro, a descendant of the Latin adjective niger, which means black. Bottom line. All right. And the Lord told uh, um, Joseph to take his wife and son and go down to where? Into Egypt, because you had a large community of Israelites down there, and they would be able to mix among the Egyptian people, because the Egyptian people also were black. The only ones at that time that were so-called white was the ruling class, but the rest of the slaves and all that, they were all people of color. Let's go from there to the book of Acts 21. And matter of fact, since that came to mind, let's go real quick here. Let's type in Israelites in Egypt. Beautiful. Let's go to images. And let's see if we could find any of those pictures. Of course, you know they're not gonna show you it right now. But if we scroll through hard enough, you'll be able to see the Israelites in Egypt. And what color are they? Brown. Brown-skinned people. You have, that would be considered ruddy. It's a brownish, reddish, It's brown with a red overtones. And you can see these are all Israelites working as slaves. Some of them were darker, some of them were a little lighter. All right. So it's all throughout, and these pictures are still up. I'm surprised they ain't erased these off of the walls down in Egypt, But it just goes to show you that the Israelites, you can see here, these are lighter skinned Israelites, that were all throughout Egypt. And they have a painting of Moses and Aaron at Dura Europa. Let's see if we can get that real quick. Moses, Aaron, Dura Europa. Right here. And you could clearly see that these are men of color. Let's see if we can find it right here with afros. This is that woolly hair that the scriptures speak about. This is Moses and this is Aaron. So-called black men. So-called black men. And you can see the rest of the people out here, but the rest of the Israelites are people of color, brown-skinned people. But you can see clearly Moses, and you can clearly see Aaron. They got the woolly hair, which the scriptures speak about woolly hair. But as Apostle Tara said, they'll say, no, that means that he was white. But that just shows you the blatant hate that Esau has for Jake. God can be any color, but he can't be a so-called black man. That's how much hate they have for Jake, But that's all right, because at the end, truth prevails. And that's what it's all about. You could take truth and you could sink it to the bottom of the sea in a buoy, right? Or you could just sink it to the bottom of the sea, period. And it's just like that buoy. You can bring it down as far as you want, but once you let it go, what's going to happen is going to pop back up to the surface. And that's what's happening right now. Truth is popping back up on the surface and smacking these devils right in the face, and they can't deal with it. So what do they resort to? They resort to lies, slander, deception, and they get physical, because they know that they're not a spiritual people. They can't go into this living book of the Bible and bring out the precepts as the men of the Lord can, the Israelites can. And even those Israelites that are using their deception to try to teach the scriptures, they can't go into the scriptures like that and bring out this living document to life, because it is a living document. I believe our elder Pastor Tar had mentioned this a while ago. And it's the truth. This is a living document. This is a living, breathing document. And every time you go into it, the Spirit works with you. If you're a man of the Lord, to bring out the information that's coming out of it. I'm trying to find this one precept. Here we go. Beautiful. Acts 21:37. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee? So now this chief captain obviously was an Edomite, because when Paul asked him, may I speak unto thee? This is what he said. Who said, canst thou speak Greek? Like, in other words, how are you speaking Greek? Now, why did he say that to him? Obviously, he didn't look like your typical, or he didn't look like a so-called white man. So he looked at, how the hell are you speaking Greek? It says, are not thou that Egyptian? And we know that the Egyptians are brown-skinned people, because we just looked at some pictures of the Israelites in Egypt, and we saw that they were people of color. So obviously Paul did not look like a so-called white man, because if he did, this individual would not have asked him, how are you speaking Greek? You see? Because the Israelites are brown-skinned people, from a dark brown to a light brown. All right? So he was amazed to see this man of color, this Israelite man, which we know that the Apostle Paul was not a Roman, even though he had Roman citizenship. We know that he was, in fact, an Israelite. Romans 11:1, I say then, have the Most High cast away his people? The Most High forbid, for I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So he was an Israelite that came directly out of the tribe of Benjamin, which today the tribe of Benjamin would be the so-called West Indians. You see? So back then, the tribe that Paul was today would be identified as a so-called West Indians. And the 12 tribe chart is spiritual, but just because it says Benjamin, so-called West Indians, you could have a Judite that believes he's a Benjamite based off where he was brought up at, or you could have an Ephraimite or a Simeonite, that identifies as Benjamin, but they're really Simeon, or they might be Issachar. The 12 tribes chart is a guide to our nationality, or waking back up. Doesn't necessarily mean you are from that particular tribe. You could think you're a Judite, you might be from the tribe of Naphtali. Or you could think you might be an Ephraimite and you could be from the tribe of Judah. So on and so forth. All right. So the Apostle Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian, which before these days made us an uproar and led us out into the wilderness, 4,000 men that were murderers. Now, let's roll from there. Let's go to the book of, just bear with me, I haven't been to this scripture in so long. I can't even think of where it's at right now. Let me try Amos 9:7. Beautiful. Hey, Barakateh, how about your mouth shot? Amos 9:7. Are you not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? Now, what color are the Ethiopians? They stand from a dark brown to a light brown. Let's go here real quick. Type in Ethiopian people. Look at that. People of color. She looks like a Gadite. She could pass for like one of the Latin tribes, the browner skinned ones. And obviously the Lord was not talking about the customs of the Ethiopians, because he said, learn not the ways of the heathens, for their customs are vain. Look at right here. You have a different range of browns among the so-called Ethiopian people, and I'm not, don't look at the heathenistic thing, look at the skin color. She's a little lighter, They're darker, a lot darker. You have some Jakes that are real dark, and you have some Jakes that are very light. She could pass for one of the Latin tribes or a Gadite, you know. Then you have some of these women here, they're lighter. Because contrary to popular belief, not every Israelite was super dark. You had some that were very dark, you had some that were lighter skin. Nevertheless, they were all brown skinned people. See, these are all Ethiopian people, you know. So the Lord is comparing the skin color of the Ethiopians to the Israelites. Okay. But let's go back. Amos 9:7. Are you not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? And that's the only thing he's comparing is the color, because we already know that the Lord separated us from all these nations. Like when you read about, let's go from there to the book of, what is that, Exodus 11:7. It says, but against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against man or beast, that you may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. So there's a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. Although the Egyptians look similar to Israelites, there's a difference there because the Lord put it there. And what was that difference? He separated us as a holy people by giving us laws, statutes, and commandments, which the Egyptians or no other nation ever received. And that's what separated us from us. Because not only because you have the same look or the same skin tone does that mean that you are the same people. And that's what a lot of these other Israelite groups that are unlearned, you know, or thick-headed push, that if you don't look like a so-called black man, you know, or if you don't look like a one of the Latin tribes, but you have to be darker, you know, that you're not an Israelite. But they never look at the other flip side of that. All right. So now let's move on. Let's see what else we got. So this individual here, Simeon, was called a black man. Why? Because he was a black man. But Lucius, which was from North Africa, that's where he lived, he was also a so-called black man. Manaen, Saul, you know, Barnabas, they were all so-called black men, men of color. You know, because when you go to the book of Revelation, the first chapter, that's not saying that Yahweh's head is white, that he was a so-called white man, because first of all, there's no such thing as white. There's no such thing as white people. The word white means purity. There's only different shades of brown and different shades of red, you know, like Elder Pastor goes into from time to time. When you look at the cosmetics, it's really brown and red, and all other colors stem from that, you know. So now let's go from there to the book of let's go to Daniel chapter 7 and 9. It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down. This is at the end when the destruction comes, you know, and the Ancient of Days did sit. Who's the Ancient of Days? The Most High. He has no beginning of days or ending of days. Whose garment was white as snow. So he had on a white garment. Okay. And the hair of his head like the pure wool. And this is exactly what it's saying in the book of Revelation, the first chapter. But it's just worded a little different in Revelation. But it's understood that when it says Revelation 1:14, when it says his head and his hairs were white like wool, meaning the hair on his head was white and woolly, just like it's written in Daniel 7 and 9, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. Now, why did it say that for the Most High? And why did it say that for Yahweh, the same exact thing? Is it because they're the same person? No. Let's go from there to the book of Hebrews, chapter 1. And this asshole vocab no class Malone, went to a Nasty Nas camp, which I'm surprised they were holding camp. Well, it's summertime now, so I guess they were out there. And I don't know if that was a setup, where Vocab told him, look, go out there and I'm gonna go come confront y'all, or what the case is. And you can never put nothing past these devils. But nevertheless, Nasty Nas and them guys are total reprobates. The Lord done stripped everything from them, except for like a few little things that they have left that is slowly but surely being taken away from them. But this is Hebrews 1:3. It says, who being the brightness of his glory, who? Let's start at the second verse. Matter of fact, I started the first verse. The Most High, who at sundry times and divers manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he had appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the what? The world. So we're speaking about, or this is speaking about who? Yahushai, the Son of the Most High, who being the brightness of his glory, see, and the express image of his person, meaning he was a spitting image of his father. He looked just like his father. That's why in Daniel 7:9, it said that the Most High and the hair of his head like the pure wool. And in Revelation, the first chapter said that his head and his hairs were white like wool. The same exact description as the Most High. And this is talking about wool. And because you have different color wool, but this particular wool happened to be white because the Most High has a hoary head. It was all white, just like Yahushai, has a hoary head, which is all white. And when you look up the word wool, because there's many different examples you could use to describe something white. And like I said, there's no such thing as so-called white people. You have either brown-skinned people or you have red people, and that's it. So you have the Hebrew word here, Aymar, which the word Aymar simply means wool. And the texture of wool, we know, is not doggy, stringy hair like the so-called white man. Let's just type in wool texture hair, see what comes up. There you go. You can see the hair of her head is woolly, and you can see wool. That does not look like the so-called white man's hair. Bushy. See, look at her. Look at this woman's hair. And look at wool. And look at her hair. And look at wool. And look at her hair. And look at wool. You see? Wool. Even though this is like a blondish, nevertheless, woolly hair does not fit so-called white people hair. This is so-called white people hair. That is not wool. So that's what it means in the scriptures. The head of his hairs, or his head and his hairs were white like wool. It's not talking about his head. The reason why I said his head and his hair, because the hair that was on his head was white and woolly. Okay, because he's a brown skinned man. As you read down, it says as white as snow, because he had a full head of gray hair. His afro, his beard, his mustache, his eyebrows, his eyelashes, everything was white. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, because his eyes were red. And his feet like unto fine brass. Fine brass is not white. Fine brass is a derivative of brown. And if you take that and as if they burned in the furnace, then that's going to show you that the color of his feet were very dark. And the reason why the apostle John was able to see his feet was because that was a custom of the Middle East, was to wear sandals, and the rest of his body was covered with a garment. So you could see his face, his hair, his afro, his beard, his mustache, and his feet. It says, and his voice is the sound of many waters. So on all levels, these devils basically are just a bunch of liars. And they pay these clowns like Dr. Freemason, Eric Freemason, to try to thwart the truth. And they think they're making strides because some people are following their bullshit, but they don't understand that that's the Lord using them on the left-hand side to pull away those that he doesn't want. Matter of fact, let me get this one precept, and then let me go to Job, the 12th chapter and the 16th verse. It says, with him is strength and wisdom, meaning with the Most High. The deceived and the deceiver are his. So whoever is deceived and whoever's doing the deceiving, guess what? They both belong to the Most High. So you got the word shagag for deceived, to go astray, err, commit sin or error. So whoever goes astray and commits error, whoever gets shagagged, right, they belong to the Lord. And whoever does the shagain, shagah, that's the deceiver, to go astray, stray, err. But this is to lead astray. This is the guy that leads them to go into that way, to swerve, meander, reel, roll, be intoxicated, err, and drunkenness. See, to be intoxicated by what? By these philosophies. And that's what's happening right now. These Israelites that are going the way of plantation Christianity, what's happening is they're being deceived by plantation Christianity, by the likes of Dr. Edom, Vocab No Class Malone, and at this time Dr. Eric Freemason, and they're being led astray, and others, because that's just a handful, you know, of the amount of people that are being led astray. Now, Songs of Solomon, the first chapter, first verse, is the Songs of Songs, which is Solomon's, and these are songs that are written in a poetic way by King Solomon. And sometimes, you know, in these songs, when it speaks about woman and things of that nature, it's talking about wisdom. And when you read about in the scriptures about the children of Israel, especially the men, the Lord said that they're comparable unto women. So sometimes when you read about the daughter of Zion, that's talking about the men of Israel. And then when you read about the daughters of Zion, that's talking about the women. Okay, so sometimes parabolically or symbolically, the scriptures will refer to the men of Israel as women because we're married to the Most High. But in Songs of Solomon 1 and 5, this is what King Solomon said, because these are his songs. It says, I am black, but comely. And this is a saying today, going back to the 60s and 70s with Jake, I'm black and beautiful. O ye daughters of Jerusalem, because for a long time, it was to have dark skin was considered portrayed as being ugly, which that's the furthest thing from the truth, because the Most High is a so-called black man. His son Yahushua is a so-called black man. The angels are so-called black men, and that is beauty. So it says, I am black but comely, or I am black and beautiful, or ye daughters of Jerusalem, as a tense of Kedar, comparable to the tense of Kedar, which to Kedar, going back to the Hebrew word Quadar, means dark skin or a dark skinned man, as the curtains of Solomon, because you know the nation of Israel is a nation that was brown, dark skin, from a dark brown to a light brown. All right, so now when you go to their word black, shakar, right? Black, properly dusky, but also absolutely jetty black. Black, used of hair, blackish color of the face, and it gives you canticles, which is Songs of Solomon 1 and 5. Bottom line. All right. So this is the dark skin of the skin. To be black of skin. You know, which is so dark that that it almost looks black, but it's not really black. It's dark brown. And then you have Job 30:30. My skin is black, and it doesn't say and draws away from off me. See how these devils operate? My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burnt with heat. This is what it says. Because Job, had a fever. Because remember, he was plagued by boils and he was plagued by all kind of stuff. So he was sickly at the time. All right. So now, King Solomon is saying, I'm black and beautiful, all you daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar. Now, when you look up the word Kedar, Quadar means dark. Right here, black-skinned man, son of Ishmael, because he had to be darker than the rest of the other his other brothers, even though they were all dark. And if they were all dark, what does that make Abraham? A dark-skinned man. What does that make Isaac? A dark-skinned man. Then it says of an Arabian tribe sprung from him. See, because you had the Arabian tribe, which is what? Which are really Ishmaelites that spring from that. So they're letting you know here that they're so-called Arabians, the Ishmaelites. But in other places, they'll say that the Arabs are the Edomites. And this is why we tell you that the blue letter Bible goes off in certain cases. So you have to be learned enough to be able to go into there and pick out the meat off the bone. This is meat right here. Black-skinned man of an Arabian tribe sprung from him. Because Ishmael, his second, I believe was his second born son, was named Kedar or Quadar, which means dark skin. And they give you a list of scriptures where you can find the name Kedar. So on all levels, man, everywhere you go into the scriptures, it's dealing with the Israelites being people of color. The only time it speaks about other skin tones other than brown is with dealing with Esau, which is the red people. They're the red man. They're the people of the Lord's curse. And also when you deal with the plague of leprosy, which leprosy comes in different forms. But one of the forms is a discoloration of the skin. This is Leviticus 13 and 29, I believe it is. Yep. If a man or woman have a plague upon the head or the beard, the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it what? A yellow thin hair. A yellow thin hair, which is what? That's where you get blonde from. The priest shall pronounce him what? Unclean. It is a dry skull, even the leprosy upon the head or beard. So if that's the case, how could the Most High be a so-called white man and his son be so-called white if yellow thin hair, which we know that applies to Esau, because majority of people that have blonde hair are Edomites, So how could the Most High say that leprosy is having blonde hair, but then they're gonna be so-called white men with blonde hair and blue eyes? That's all leprosy. And there's many other parts here that go into the discoloration of the let me see something. Here we go. Let's try it. Leviticus 13:18. The flesh also, in which even in the skin thereof was a boil, and is healed, and in the place of the boil there be a white rising, or a bright spot, white and somewhat reddish. See, like Esau. And it be showed to the priest, and if when the priest seeth it, behold, it be in sight lower than the skin, and the hair thereof be turned white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague of leprosy broken out of the boil. And when you look up the term vitiligo, which is really leprosy, it's a discoloration of the skin. And sometimes that skin is raw. And when that skin is raw, that's when it's unclean. But when it's all turned white, then they're clean. You see the discoloration. She's going from a brown-skinned woman to a white woman. This individual is going from a brown-skinned man to a so-called white-looking man. And here you go. See? And then even her hair, remember it said the hair turned white? That's leprosy. So how in the hell could the Most High have leprosy and his son have leprosy if this is unclean? How could the Most High be a so-called white man and his son a so-called white man when to be so-called white is leprosy, and this is considered to be unclean? Look at this. But in this society, they're trying to paint this as being beautiful. That's where you have models modeling like this with the skin discoloration, as if that's beautiful. There's nothing beautiful about that. You know, there is nothing beautiful about that. That's leprosy, cold, straight up leprosy. Look at this. Look at that. The hair turned white. Let me see. See, look at that. But this guy's modeling. That's all leprosy, and it's going down the middle of his forehead, his nose, and this is all white because of the leprosy. You know, born different. You know, and they I mean, it looked like he was modeling there for a minute. That's all unclean, and I believe this is the chick that's modeling. I'm not 100% sure, but excuse me, there is a chick that's modeling. I believe that's her. Yeah, that's her. You know, with that skin disease, but they made her as a top model. So now to look like that is cool now. You know? Oh, it's exotic. There's nothing exotic about that shit. That shit is leprosy. All right? So why would the Most High make himself and his son to be leprous when leprosy is an uncleanness? The Most High is not unclean. So let's go back to Daniel 7 and 9, where it says that the Most High garment was white as snow and the hair of his head like the pure wool. We read the same thing in Revelation with Yahushai. We read about King Solomon being a dark-skinned man, the tents of Kedar being dark-skinned men, and pretty much they're just doing that because they're deceiving the people of the Lord. Bottom line, no, and that's pretty much it. So I mean, I'm gonna leave it there. I got to get ready to get on up out of here, go to work. So I wanted to go live last night. I had another lesson, but it wasn't coming together, So I said, you know what? Let me just pack it up for now, and the Lord's will, when the Spirit hit me again, then I could, go live. And I was watching Elder Apostle Tar's video earlier today, which he's been doing a whole bunch of videos on these guys. Dr. Eric, the Freemason, and and other lessons on Caleb not being an Edomite, Job not being an Edomite, and the Spirit was heavy on them going to the Igbo, how they're Hebrews, and then these assholes start talking their madness. So the Spirit just turned in that direction, because from time to time we do have to go into color scriptures. I don't know if you brothers remember, probably about a couple of months ago, Spirit jumped on Elder Apostle Tahar to say, that we got to start doing more videos on the icons. And it's true, because we're at the time now for the great exposure of Esau. And you know what they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words or something like that, because those paintings are actual paintings that were painted by somebody that were left there, until Esau came into power during the time of the Renaissance period and started a process called iconoclasm, which was the defacing of images, and that's why you have a lot of white images today that comes from the Renaissance period, but you still have a whole lot of icons that are still so-called black, brown, that they couldn't get to. So with that, I'm gonna leave it there. I pray that you brothers have been edified. And this is a topic that you can go on for days on. There's all kind of scriptures on color, on disproving the lie that Esau is trying to push out there. But only the simple are going to fall for it, because, that's just what it is. The simple are just the simple. All right, so with that, I pray that you brothers have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.